Well, hello, hello. I guess this will be my first ever takeover, so that's interesting. Um, Not sure if anybody's here yet, but I'm John Stovall, author of 13 lit RPG novels, I think now. Four in the Corrupted Core series, three in the Fall of a Dungeon House, two in Villain Core. um, I guess 11 published currently, two in Elf Empire, but two more in Elf Empire and Giant Dungeon are all written, so that would take me to 14. Um, this is the series that I'm currently promoting. Elf Empire. It's a primarily a lit RPG adventure, but it is also got strong elements of kingdom building and maybe just a tiny bit of sort of found family cozy type of stuff going on. It's the one that's sort of pushing my name right now. Although somebody did just leave a really beautiful series of posts about my original set of novels, the Dungeon Core, Corrupted Core series, so that was cool. Um, yeah, this is my workspace. Um, you can see to the, I guess, looking at it left on the screen, but to the wall behind me. Um, hey, Mr. Man. Hello, Mr. Smith. You can see on the wall behind me that I've got a ton of little pictures up. There's also ones you can't see in front of me. Those represent the all the covers that are from both the novels that I've done and the novels that yes, I do. Um, the ones that you're probably looking at on the wall to the side of me are actually chamois covers. Technically, those are also some sneak peek covers if you can see them in that small. Um, I have many positive attributes. I do not think handsomeness is one of them. But yeah, those are the ones to the that you can see are actually chamois. The ones that are mine are directly in front of me so that I can see them. But that does make it so that in these meeting type of situations, nobody actually sees mine. Um, no, definitely no. Um, Sort of the opposite to some degree. I mean, she doesn't write my books, but she taught me pretty much everything I know about being an author. So she's definitely the more thoroughly successful one of us in terms of being an author. Although I had a much longer and more storied career being an attorney, and we're both Juris Doctorates. But she left earlier to become an author, so that's sort of our work history in a nutshell. I stayed an author or stayed an attorney while she trained to be an author. Now she trains me to be an author. um, Pretty decent. I don't think I would go with amazing just yet, but I've only been doing it 2.5 years. Um, it was fantastic transitioning. I did a post about it. I think before most people in the community knew who I was. Not that that many know it right now, but um, being an attorney is awful. There is just no other way to say it. I was usually in court with either somebody's freedom, somebody's children, somebody's life savings, or somebody's like house and kids online based on my performance. Like 2 days out of a week, I would wake up at 2 in the morning, freaking out about cases I had prepared for, to the point that I would just drive into the office to re-prepare, even though I'd done it before. Um, I like to say, I used to see authors that would say things like "I love my fans," and it never made sense to me. I was always like, "Yeah, sure you do, buddy. Most people can only love like 5 people," but I kind of get it now that I'm an author because collectively I love my fans because they allow me to dream for a living instead of stress for a living. Um, I got to tell you, James, if you've got the child, that's actually better than most men do. Um, I was for 6 of my 13 years, I was at least part time a divorce attorney, and yeah, usually men do not do that well. Um, why do I love Dungeon Core so much over other subgenres of lit RPG? Um, I love empire building games. Way back as a teenager, I encountered Civilization 2. I don't think I actually did Civilization 1, and I also encountered Europa Universalis 2, and I fell completely in love with it. I like the finicky processes of watching numbers change, of figuring stuff out, of building empires. And I guess Dungeon Core is sort of like that for me, only with an extra story built in. I did also like the Dungeon Keeper series, video games, quite a bit. If you know Dungeon Core, most people have probably in heard about that or encountered it, but it was a lot of fun. It had a really sense of humor to it as well, which I try to incorporate into my books. Somebody did a post recently with the well, if it isn't the consequences of my own actions, which I threw in there. Um, so yeah. So sorry, I actually started with that, but I think I was rambling into the void. Geneva told me to start talking about my books and go there. But so I write two types of books basically. The first is Dungeon Core, six of the novels that I've currently published, and the one coming out probably on the 27th in 2 days are Dungeon Core. Although the one coming out in 2 days is Dungeon Lord, where the main character is not a sentient rock, but an individual that can is ambulatory, can move around. Um, the first four books are all in the series Dungeon of Stories. It's Corrupted Core, Entropic Core, Warring Core, and the Forgotten Core. And that's I tried what I was trying to do when I wrote that series um, was to write like the feel of Divine Dungeon, but to tell an alternative version of the story that was in Jonathan Brooks' Hapless Dungeon Fairy series. The first book has a really fascinating interaction between dwarves and a dungeon in a mountain. So I made myself a dungeon in a mountain and a bunch of dwarves and had them do things differently. And that's probably what I'm still the most known for of any of the series, although I think Elf Empire is getting up there. Um, Based on that, I got very excited, or based on the Perfect Run, I got very excited about superheroes, and based on some of Matthew Pede's dungeon core work, I got sort of excited about more futuristic dungeons, and so I wrote Villain Core thereafter. Um, and that's basically just a superhero dungeon. It's a superhero training center as Dungeon Core. Um, from that point, I wrote a hybrid adventure dungeon lord story called Fall of a Dungeon House. It's probably my least popular series. It's very hybrid. It does sort of half of a lot of things. And then I took a bit of a break, and now I've released Elf Empire. I've got 4 books in that series written. I've also got Dryad Dungeon, which is set in the same world that'll be coming out shortly. Um, no, no, didn't do that one. Um, I actually, for most dungeon core type stuff, I don't like to have the memories. I did it in Villain Core, but in that one, it was because he was supposed to be a hero and became a dungeon training center instead. I didn't really have because it's set in a supposed Earth world, so it wasn't something that I could easily make like a no memories type of situation. That alien feeling is a little bit harder to do when it's just set in Earth. Um, Not as much as you would think. I've been some of it was just saved up, like I was doing stuff on Railroad and such. I probably average about 60,000 words a month, although it's very much an average. Some weeks it's nearly zero, and I've written 31,000 words in a week. Um, Shammy writes closer to 80K a month, so I think maybe I just have a different expectation because a lot of people get very weirded out when I tell them I write like 60K every month, and they get very excited. But I'm the turtle in our author household, so to speak. So it's yeah. But just because of the way, I'm doing like a rapid release thing. Um, see how that works out. I know um, that Matt Dinneman that you said it probably better to let it germinate, but I had a lot of success with Dungeon of Stories doing a rapid release, so I'm just trying it again, see what happens. Also, I'd already set it up before I read your post about all that, so um, yeah. Well, Elf Empire is outside of dungeons. There's no dungeons. He never goes into a dungeon in Elf Empire. It's a kingdom building. What I really never have an inkling to write outside of is a bunch of math and a bunch of growth and development of something, whether it be a kingdom or a dungeon. I think the crowd that likes me is the type of crowd that is sort of the really numbers heavy part of lit RPG. I think that was mostly the people that got in very early. Now I think there's a group of people that are looking basically for male escapist fantasy because it's not really being produced by a lot of traditional publishers very often. That are a little bit less into the numbers, but I think my core audience is still number people. Whether it's Dungeon Core or my Kingdom Building series. A couple of my fans complained that they didn't think there was enough kingdom building in Elf Empire. So, yeah, I don't make enough money to pay people to like me. So, um, yeah, Matt, it's interesting that you say that the 60, 80K as not a turtle, but Shammy usually writes probably about an average of 80. And we also are in a writing group with Ryan Tang he did Mimic and Me. And then we're in a group with Scott Killian that did Lichcore. And both of them tend to write in the 80 to 100K as well a month, most months. So I guess just in the group that I'm hanging with, I'm one of the sort of middle speed ones. So it's always weird to me when people talk about how fast I supposedly write because I don't feel it. I'm usually struggling to make the middle of the pack when we do our writing group stuff. Um, but you know, I also sometimes think that maybe I need to slow down a little bit because certain people have series that are wildly popular, and so I got to get one of those going. Uh, got mostly medium popular series right now. Um, did I see? Miss any questions? Um, I'm going to answer those backwards. Um, I've said this before in one of these panel type things. I'm inspired mostly by fear of failure is the best way I could explain it. Um, if you want to be successful, you got to push. And I don't usually it's the sort of the opposite. Like I don't get up being like, wow, I cannot wait to write. It's more like I get up and I'm like, I'd like to play video games. And then if I don't write, I start to feel terrible about myself. Um, is the best way I could say that. Um, and then I'm usually most of my random ideas that I'm excited to write are system ideas. Like I'm also working on a card game novel right now, although that's going to be delayed a little bit. I'm doing a pretty hefty rewrite based on railroad feedback. But I got really excited about the card game, and then borrowed one of Shammy's old stories and modified it to fit card game. Um, so and now I've technically started a card dungeon book. Um, I don't know. I waste a lot of words on projects that may or may not get finished. I actually have like 5 or 6 dungeon cores where I've written the first 20K or so words and have never really gone anywhere. Um, yeah, yeah. So Shammy's a part of the 20 to 50 group, and they have a whole series of strategies, um, and most of them involve more books is more better. But it's also just a matter of training. It takes an average of 10,000 hours, I've heard, to get good at something, which is 5 years full time. Um, so I need to get 5 years of writing in to reach my peak, probably. And I'm only about 2.5, so 2.5 years left to improve, and then you'll probably see peak John, hopefully. Um, yes, I'm a full time author. I do not yet make as much as I did as an attorney, but I make enough that it, even without Shammy, it would be a livable um, income. So yeah, not even close to Shammy though. But but yes, full time author, 100%. Quit being an attorney. I think August. Yeah, I think it was August Friday the 13th. 2 years ago, 2.5. Yeah, 2 years ago. Um, After Dungeon of Stories was sufficiently successful that it justified um, stopping, I guess. Um, Shammy's a much better spirit than me. JD. Yeah, Matt. I guess the best way I could say it is, if you're an attorney, you want some other job. Um, every attorney I know has some kind of major addiction: gambling, alcohol, drugs, something. As a way to cope with things. For me, it was cheeseburgers. You could probably tell by looking at me. Um, but it is beyond stressful, and I am extraordinarily thankful to Shammy that she was successful enough that we could maintain our lifestyle with me stopping being an attorney, because 13 years of that was about 12 years, 9 months too much. It was really exciting for a couple months here and there, but that's about it. Um, yes, Shammy got her Juris Doctorate as well, and she worked in a drug court helping um, people break the habit of drugs, basically, like helping them navigate the part of where they had to come back and talk to the judge. Um, but yes, we both did law. We followed pretty similar paths. I got a poli sci undergrad. She got a history undergrad. We both went to law school. We technically both practiced in the law. Shammy's done a little bit more than me, though. She was a university professor as well. I've never done any kind of teaching. Um, she also taught autistic children before going to law school. I think I'm maybe during. I'm not 100% positive. Yes, cheeseburgers are absolutely amazing. Um, all fatty meats are amazing in my opinion, but you probably tell just by looking at me. Um, I do think also, being an attorney, one thing which I can say is it teaches you to look for structure. Um, Within the writers group, I'm sort of known for being very, very good at story structure and medium good at sort of like descriptive writing and things like that. A lot of the people I know are very, very good at like turns of phrase, grammar, um, things of that nature, but their stories come apart over a long enough time frame. I was very good at early analysis of um, like 3 act structure and all that kind of stuff. When Shammy was teaching me that, I picked it up very, very quickly. Whereas it's taken me a lot longer to pick up like writing. I think my quote trauma hurts my writing. There really isn't a lot of a market for dark fiction right now. Um, and it's very hard for me to write lighthearted. If there isn't really serious stakes on the table and really dark activity going on, I find it less interesting. I think that's one of the reasons that I'm so drawn to Matt Dinniman's work is that he has a much darker streak through his stuff than a lot of the authors do, and it encourages me that he's very successful because it means that probably I can have a little bit of that in my work and still be successful myself. Once my writing has reached a peak level. Um, I mean, I was on murder trials. I handled cases where parents had abused their kids very, very, very thoroughly. I've been on a lot of extremely dark cases with the absolute worst of human behavior, and so uh, I mean, now I'm going to sound kind of dismissive, and I don't want you guys to take it that way because I love, love, love lit RPG and dungeon core, but I do think one of the weaknesses from my perspective is that a lot of people sort of go with Saturday morning cartoon main villains. Eh, a few of the books I like really heavily are tend to have much darker and much more evil, thoroughly evil villains with understandably evil motivations is the best way I could say it. So I don't really think any of the darkness has been terribly helpful to me in any way, form, or manner except getting me paid. Um, I think training to be a lawyer was helpful, but I don't even know what JNCO genes are, but that's fantastic. Um, yeah, so if you did, speaking to Matt, if you did the Child Protective Services, so I was a parents attorney in the dependency court in California, so I was dealing with the Child Protective Services cases, and those were the last couple of years, and that's probably what burned me out the most. There is nothing as disheartening as children being harmed and you having to deal with that at some level. So I guess I feel that's probably why I have the same. That's why I like your writing so much. Frankly, I think is because I can feel the darkness and the anger against it from the character. That's the best way I could explain it. Um, but Fall of a Dungeon House was my version of the dark story, and it was not financially very successful. Whereas the characters that are just really happy and excited for life, like Dungeon of Stories, were much much more financially successful. So I'm trying to stay away from it. Well, I was extremely fortunate in my choice of birth locations, let us say, because I ended up in a Leave It to Beaver family. I didn't really encounter the evil of the world until I went to work. Um, Extremely sheltered as a child. Um, Growing up in a foster home would be extremely challenging, I think. Um, but but yeah, it's all out there, and eventually I found it. Um, but now I'm an author, and authoring is 1,000 times better. I love, 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 love writing. Um, it's not stressful. I get 8 hours of sleep a night. I get to meet fans. I've only got a couple, but they're fantastic. I get to interact with a ton of cool people. There is a very large degree to which my people are not attorneys. My people are lit RPG authors. Um, we like the same stuff. We're part of the same tribe. Um, I'm not running an entire con by myself, Geneva. I'm not quite sure how you're doing it, but that's extraordinarily impressive. But yeah, no, as an attorney, I probably slept 5.5, 6 hours most nights. Frequently less than 4.5 because of stress levels. And now as an attorney, I sleep 7.5, 8 pretty much every night. So, excuse me, as an author. So no, I love being an author. I just absolutely love it. It may be comparative. Maybe if I started as an author, I wouldn't appreciate it as much. But author stress has nothing on attorney stress. It just doesn't. Um, and it's just 1,000 times better. I've already said it, but I'm so incredibly thankful to Shammy for leading us down this path and making this possible. Um, I don't think I would have had the creativity, I guess, to see it through myself without her first. So yeah. Um, I don't know. I've heard a lot of people had a lot more stressful starts to their author career. I don't really know, Matt, how true this is, but I heard you had to spend many, many years struggling like crazy, sort of doing two jobs to make everything work. Whereas once Shammy got going, I pretty much got to just jump ship right to being an author full time. So maybe I'm having a different experience than everybody else is, but for me, the difference between being an attorney and working with all those child protective service cases and being an author is just absolutely night and day. It's like coming in out of the freezing snow to a warm house filled with hot cocoa or cheeseburgers in my case. So, yeah, just very different. Um, I guess those are the feelings I tap into when I write my happy characters like Will in Dungeons of Stories. Um, James, I apologize. You said I don't know, but Shammy was fun to watch on panels. You don't know what exactly? Well, oh. Uh, um, sorry, that piece of hair was bugging me. Um, hey, so, um, does anybody else have any questions? I've sort of run out of steam on the last couple. Oh, well, that's convenient. Apparently, we've only got like 2 minutes left, so I'm all ears, Matt, so to speak. All eyes in this case. Um, I guess at this point, I would say Elf Empire. I think it's much, much better written, and it has significantly eh, more broad appeal because it is primarily a lit RPG adventure in the sort of standard isekai story first. So I guess that's really what I would recommend to everybody at this point. Everything else I do is very, very niche. But Elf Empire is more. It has more broad appeal to everybody. Um, the only reason I hesitate at all in answering the question is because I almost want to recommend my dark novel to you specifically, Matt, but it was pretty poorly received compared to Elf Empire or Dungeon of Stories. So I worry about that one. But yeah, Elf Empire is pretty much the one that I would be recommending to everybody at this point. But yeah, Elf Empire It will have 4 novels. It's got 2 right now. Third one comes out on 11/8. Dry Dungeon comes out in 2 days. That's part of the same world. Um, I have a series called Fall of a Dungeon House, which is very dark. Um, it's a semi-political uh, thriller. Um, and then I have my Dungeon Core, Villain Core, and Dungeon to Stories. Villain Core is 2 novels. Dungeon to Stories is 4, um, and they're fairly standard for what they are. Um, and I think that's my mark. So thank you everybody for coming out. Um, I really appreciate it. Um, wow, you already got to follow the Dungeon House, Ricky. That's impressive, Richie. Sorry. Um, Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, I don't know what they are. It's whatever Geneva tells me it is. It's panel takeover. It's whatever Geneva says it is. Um, well, I appreciate the positive vibes, guys. But I'm always looking for the next level. I guess is the best way I could put it. It has its upsides, it has its downsides, but yeah, that's my thing, I guess. Good enough never is. Dude, Matt, that is the most that thing you wrote where I posted the picture of the OnlyFans on the inside of the book you sent me is still, I think, the most upvoted thing I've ever had on Reddit by about a 5-to-1 margin. So that was a fantastic comment. All right, uh, goodbye, everybody. Thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it.